Farcaster 101 is an educational series brought to you by GM Farcaster in partnership with Snickerdoodle, building off of their State of Farcaster report, which you can access at Snickerdoodle.com. This 12-part series introduces all aspects of the Farcaster ecosystem and helps you get started building your social graph and brand on Farcaster. GM Farcaster, and welcome to Module 3 of Farcaster 101. We're going to start diving into frames. So Module 3 is going to give you an introduction to frames, and Module 4 will help you learn how to create your own frames in a number of different ways. So if you have found us, and this is the first video you're watching, please step back to Modules 1 and 2 and get a little bit more of a foundation before you move forward. And also feel free to stop by our office hours, which we'll be holding each Wednesday as we introduce this series. And if you found us at a later date and our office hours are no longer active, find us on Farcaster and we'll be happy to answer any questions. So let's dive in with our introduction to frames. So we're going to get started with frames. So we're going to go over what are frames, use cases and examples. We're going to introduce you to transaction frames, composer actions, and mini apps. And these are all sort of extensions of the basic frames that we're going to start with. So what are Farcaster frames? Well, frames are a way to build interactive apps that run directly in a Farcaster social feed. They can be used to create rich in-feed experiences for web applications. So, Adrienne, what does all of that mean? Because that's a bit of a mouthful. So what exactly are we talking about here when we talk about frames?
The best way to think about frames is as another type of content type almost that you're going to share and see and interact with in the Farcaster feed. So if you think about what other social networks are like, it's pretty much you have your feed of posts. Users come in, they're creating user-generated content. If you're using X, it's a text, or it used to be a text-based network, more video now these days, but LinkedIn, but whatever it is, you're seeing text and images. And that's pretty much, and video, and that's pretty much what people share. What frames are is a way for people to post and generate really interactive content. So as a user, when someone shares a frame, you can interact almost like a mini web page, if you will, that's right within your social feed. So it's like it makes Farcaster a really rich, dynamic feed of content, I'd say. It's really, I think, one of the more exciting features within Farcaster.
Perfect. And behind all of this is the Open Graph Protocol. So frames are standard for creating interactive and authenticated experiences on Farcaster, embeddable in any Farcaster client. A frame is a set of meta tags returned within the head of an HTML page. If a page contains all required frame properties, the frame apps will render the page as a frame. The frame meta tags extend the Open Graph Protocol. And Adrienne, what is the Open Graph Protocol? Like, what is this that we're talking about? Where did it start? What does it do?
Yeah, so the Open Graph Protocol was originated in Facebook back in the day as a way for different social networks to get information about links that were being shared. So if you're going to share a URL on your social feed, by giving kind of the app a little bit more information in the URL, this is at the coding level, that app would know maybe what image to show as a preview. Or so like when you see a YouTube link, for instance, being shared on a social network and you see a preview of the video or the title or the description, or if you're sharing a blog or a newsletter and you see an image, all of that data comes from the Open Graph Protocol. That's considered Open Graph. And if you go to the next slide, this is an example on the screen here of how Open Graph data can be interpreted or displayed across different social networks. So if you want to share a YouTube video, and here's on the left side is X is displaying a YouTube video. It's just the URL. It doesn't do anything with it. And on the right-hand side is how Warpcast is showing more of a rich preview. It's pulling the title and a little image kind of thumbnail of the video. This is not frames yet. This is just like the basic Open Graph protocol data. So that's just the background on where frames came from. But this is still, I'd say Open Graph is still just very static. It's just displaying content. What frames does is it extends the Open Graph and makes it so that you can add additional features and make it more interactive. So imagine being able to like the YouTube video. Imagine being able to like the YouTube video or comment on it from within the feed without having to go to the app. That's the vision, I'd say, for frames.
And if you're looking for additional information about frames and what they can do, you can go to docs.farcaster.xyz/developers/frames. And that will give you a really great starting point, as well as some videos as to your next steps for building frames. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that in our next module as well. But let's take a look at a frame before we go any further. And this is a frame by Snickerdoodle. It was for the State of Farcaster 2024 report. And you'll see within this cast, which is, as we talked about before, sort of similar to a tweet or a post on other media. This is where you can add the link that will then turn into a frame. So essentially what Snickerdoodle wrote was, this text, your product testing or marketing campaign calibration can do much better on Farcaster than spending thousands of dollars on X, TG, or Discord, simply because of the high quality crowd. But the platform itself doesn't give much insights about its ecosystem yet. So of course we had the pleasure to do it. Check out the State of Farcaster to understand the platform better and leverage it to its fullest. And then dropped the link to the frame they created on Nanar. So they created a frame on Nanar. We're going to talk about that in our next video, in our next module. But this led to a really sort of straightforward frame. This is a pretty simple frame to create, but it provides a lot of powerful information within this small little window that somebody doesn't have to leave and go to another website just to check it out. You can add some links, and we will show you that as well. But this allows you to kind of flip through the different data that was presented within the report, which was pretty interesting as well. So you should definitely go check that out. So the other links down here, the other buttons, and you can have up to 4, I believe, in this type of frame, is the opportunity to go to the website and download the report itself. So it'll bring you to the actual report. And then the other button is the share button, which will then create a new cast in which you can share it with your audience on Warpcast. So a couple different options here. It's going to then dynamically create the cast for you. You'll be able to add some additional information and then cast this out to your followers. So that gives you a really good idea of a basic frame and what that looks like and how simple it can be to utilize and to create. We'll talk about creation shortly in our next module. Adrienne, anything I left out that you think we should add into this this particular information?
I think you covered it all. It's a good kind of just overview of the potential, and just to kind of, I guess, give the idea of what a frame is. It's a way to create interactive experiences directly within your feed, because it's based on a standard, and we're going to show different examples. There's so many different things you can do with it. So it's
let's move on to some other examples.
Yeah.
Before we jump into a lot of other different types of frames, let's just talk about some basic history of frames on Farcaster. This just launched at the end of January 2023. So that was put into the protocol, and it sort of
2024, Prof.
Oh my God, 2024, I'm wrong. 2024, not 2023. It feels like it was 2 years No, it is not even a year old yet at the time of this recording. My apologies. So January 2024, this launched, and it was really kind of an exciting moment. You could see that the devs knew the potential here and were excited about it. So they immediately started seeing what they could do with frames. And they started pretty basic and straightforward, a lot of just sort of linking out to other sites, but starting to kind of explore what could be done. And this was one of the very first Farcaster frames. I think it was maybe the second one. The first one was Paragraph, I think, and maybe a couple others. And then it was the Girl Scout cookies. And this became a way to order Girl Scout cookies in a frame, linking out to a site, and also to be able to order them with crypto, which was very exciting. And then we get a little bit more complex as time goes on. Transaction frames came next, and this allowed for an actual transaction with your wallet to occur within the frame, or by staying, at least in a very simple way, within Warpcast. So this is an example of Sam's Candle Club, where you can actually subscribe to her hypersub being a method of subscription similar to like a Patreon or something like that, with a different time-bound subscription. And in this case, it's ordering handmade candles from Sam. And this can happen all within this frame. So very simple process as well. And then what else should we talk about with transaction frames? This has been something that's fairly new development. It came a few months after the introduction of frames. What am I missing here, Adrienne, that we might want to call out?
Well, this is, I guess I'll just say, because Farcaster is built on crypto rails and everybody has a way to attach a crypto account or a crypto wallet to your Farcaster account, it makes the ability to transact and kind of do a transaction in terms a lot easier, because Farcaster knows where your wallet is. So
it's allowed for a lot of creativity in terms of different types of transaction frames that we see. Sometimes they're pulling data from the social graph directly and sort of displaying that for you, whether that's maybe the number of casts or your storage availability, things like that. Or it can be pulling the opportunity to do a transaction with your wallet that's attached to your account. So there's different things that can be happening in the background. But it definitely allows for a lot of creativity. One of the other things it allows for is minting with a wallet, minting different NFTs, and we'll show that a little bit more in our next iteration, our next module. So we also have something called composer actions. So Adrienne, can you tell us what a composer action is, and how is this a little bit different?
A composer action is something you can take advantage of as you're composing or creating a cast in Farcaster. So there'll be a little menu option, which we'll demo in the next module, that as you're composing an act, there's a list of composer actions. And these are just Lego blocks. They're not necessarily built by the core Farcaster or Warpcast team. These are developers in the ecosystem are creating actions that anybody can use. And it's a way to use frames without having to develop your own. So one example is there's an app called events.xyz. It's like a Luma or an Evite, some sort of kind of event manager, but you can, with a composer action, select to host an event, and from a composer action, fill in a few little pieces of information, and then boom, you have when you go to create your cast, it'll display as a frame. Another example of a composer action is by Bounty Caster, where you can choose Bounty Caster in the list of composer actions when you're creating a cast, and it will let you create a bounty for in any number of categories. But let's say you want to, what's an example of a bounty? famous
Oh,
bounty
well,
or
let's see if maybe you want to reward somebody who might wear a crop top of your particular shirt that you created for at East Denver, and you wanted to put a
That's
bounty out there. You could do that within your composer action. This may or may not be a real thing that Adrian did. So
well,
there you
I
go.
did do that. A bounty.
There's that. The bounties can be fun, or the bounties can be a little more serious. So say you're looking for a developer to assist on a project or a designer, or you need a logo created or what have you. You can post those with Bountycaster, and you can do that right within Composer Action. So you open up your cast, click on the Composer Action button, and it will give you a list of different options. And we're going to show you that in our next module and kind of walk through the interactive pieces of this. All right. And it does make it very easy so that you don't have to necessarily develop your own frame for these things. And then taking it to the next level is mini apps. And mini apps are coming in different flavors. This is sort of a basic mini app with Paragraph, which allows you to actually read this newsletter / blog post right within your feed. And it opens up into a nice reading experience so that you can read and then subscribe, and then also even collect the NFT that might go with this particular post. So we do use Paragraph for our newsletters, and we will be actually creating special newsletter for this series, for the Farcaster 101 series. So you will see a companion piece to each of these videos that lays out all the resources that go along with it and make it very easy for you to access. So look for that in the GMFC 101 channel. Did I get the channel right? What is it?
GM Farcaster 101.
101.
Channel.
GM Farcaster 101 channel. I knew I was going to mess that part up. We might just leave that in anyway for fun. So also mini apps can be, like I said, simple along these lines, just creating a great different reading experience, or they can be a little bit more complex where they open up a game. So one such game, which we'll show you in the next module, is Flappycaster, which I am horrible at. Let me be very clear about that. And trivia, which I am good at. So both of these happen within a frame on the timeline, but open up a whole different, very rich app experience right within Farcaster. Anything else about mini apps that I may have left out, Adrian?
You didn't leave anything out, but I'm just really excited for everyone to be able to see frames in action, because as we're going through this, like we said, frames have been around for less than a year. It feels much longer. And already when I go to other social networks and I scroll a feed and I realize the only thing I can do is consume, like watch a video, read someone's post, and you lose people's attention. Like you can't. So everything in Farcaster with the frames has become such a richer, dynamic, interactive experience. And it's not because the core team or the Warpcast team are building all these features. It's because it created a way for other people to build and kind of other developers to build these experiences. So I'm just very excited to get to the next module to do the demos of frames, because they're super cool.
Well, before we do that, let's mention this one bit of information from DF, David Furlong, who has been amazing with creating frames. He was one of the first sort of frame developers and created a lot of open source frame tooling. And he had recently posted there are now 24 apps that display frames within them. And it is another part of this sort of Lego block thing that you can then add these into other clients, other apps, and allow them to be used there as well. So there's a lot of cross-pollination, which is fantastic. And we're going to move on to our next module in creating frames and give you a lot more idea of what this looks like. We'll do some interacting within these frames, the mini apps and the composer actions, so you can see exactly how this all works and how you can create your own on Farcaster. So we'll see you in just a moment. Bye-bye. Farcaster 101 is an educational series brought to you by GM Farcaster in partnership with Snickerdoodle, building off of their State of Farcaster report, which you can access at Snickerdoodle.com. This 12-part series introduces all aspects of the Farcaster ecosystem and helps you get started building your social graph and brand on Farcaster. GM Farcaster, and welcome back to Farcaster 101. This is Module 4, and we're going to talk about creating frames within Farcaster in a number of different ways, from the very simple of just sharing a link to the more complex using things like Nanar Frame Studio or really diving into the development options. So let's get started here. Very excited to dive in, and we are going to talk about reviewing some frames and what they are, and then what are frames created with links, creating no-code frames, and the frame development guide. And just as a reminder, so if you've just found us and this is your first video that you're like, I have no idea what's going on, you're really going to be a little lost. So step back. Step back to Module 3 at least, if you're just wanting to learn about frames and you're familiar with Farcaster. If you are brand new to Farcaster and have no idea what this is, please go back to Modules 1 and 2 and get a little bit better foundation before diving in. So Farcaster Frames are a way to build interactive apps that run directly in a Farcaster social feed that they can be used to create rich in-feed experiences for web applications. And we're going to demonstrate a few of those and how you create them right now. So we're going to start from very simple frames from links. So for some of the applications that have developed and integrated frames, you can take a link from their website, drop it into Farcaster, share it there, and it magically becomes a frame. I like to say magically because I'm the less technical of the two of us.
It is magic.
So what's really happening if you can add a little bit of the technical background, what's really happening there, Adrienne, behind the scenes with the Open Graph protocol?
It's a link on MashiCam of your photo. In the header tag of the HTML page, there's just a little bit of instructions that tell Farcaster what to show in those buttons on the bottom. So it tells you that first button is for minting and what should happen when you click it. The second button, view on Moshi, and what URL to go to. So it is just kind of instructions for computers to know what to display.
So essentially, when you're looking at this, it's going to allow you to mint within this frame, and you can click further down. And this particular frame, will allow you to mint with warps. So if you go back to, I think it was our first or second or both modules, we talked about warps as one of the in-app currencies that can be used within Farcaster. It is the currency that was created by the Merkle team to be used only within Warpcast, and it does not change in value. It has no speculative value and has various use cases, one of being minting NFTs or things like MoshiCam. So you can mint directly in this little frame, as well as if you go back to the original frame, you can also view this on MoshiCam and go right into their app if you prefer that viewing experience. And then that would allow you to see other ones by Adrienne or create your own Moshi, etc. So it does have other options you can play around with. All right, moving back over here. So this is a very simple way to create a frame. You're going to go into Moshi, create your picture. You're adding it with this kind of fun frame around it, border around it, maybe adding some stickers, taking that link and just dropping it in. And then in the background, all these magical things are happening. So a lot of fun. We love MoshiCam. Go check it out.
MoshiCam, and it's way more fun than just sharing a picture. So you can just upload a picture in your cast, but by doing it on MashiCam, you can make it look really cool, and then you make it mintable, and people on Farcaster love to collect and mint NFTs.
So if you were at an event, for example, there was a bunch of you all together, you can post this and everyone could mint it and save it to their own wallets, and for a very minimal fee. So I think it's 50 or 60 warps, which is like basically 30 cents, I think is where it ends up. And then we go into other types of NFT minting that's available. So Zora.co and other NFT creation sites like Manifold.xyz and Highlight.xyz are also compatible sites that have optimized for frames. So you can cast a link that will drop a frame in your cast, allowing for minting directly in your feed. So for GM Farcaster, for example, we put everything, all of our episodes on Zora. So if you collect this, it will actually be the video of that particular episode that we did earlier today, and you can mint it right within your feed. So I'm going to have Adrian demonstrate that. And Adrian, what does it look like what kind of transaction, et cetera, comes up when you're minting within a frame?
Yeah, so this is the link to our episode, and again, it's just all you have to do is cast the link to using the Zora URL, and it gets displayed as a frame. And there's two buttons available: a mint button or view on Zora. So if I click mint, it will pull up a little transaction preview and simulation, and it'll say, we'll be sending 0.000. Maybe one more 0.11 ETH. That's about 30 cents. And I'll receive a mint back. So I can continue in wallet, and just like crypto transactions, it's going to be still something I manage within my wallet directly.
That's a really useful way to be able to mint an NFT right on Warpcast. It does go into your wallet, whatever wallet that you mint that to, automatically. Automagically. I think I'm going to say automagically. But you can also then just link back out to the site if you prefer, if that is more comfortable for you. But you can see that simulated transaction to make sure that you are safely using your wallet within the frame. Okay, so moving on to some things that have a little bit more beef to them. Composer actions. So Adrian, composer actions are a little different, because what you're doing is starting with a cast, and you're then using a button to then create a frame in that cast automatically, and maybe even completing some information to get that ready. So Adrian, I'm going to let you take it from here and show us what it's like to use the composer action and create an event using event.xyz's composer action.
Let's do it.
So back to you. All right. So let me add you back up here. If you're ready,
right, so
take it away.
So you are seeing my Warpcast screen. I'm going to click cast. And there is a little icon of 4 little squares. This is the composer actions. It's going to bring up a screen, and you're going to see there are a whole bunch of different actions I can choose from. This is, like we covered in our last module, just different ways for you to be creating content within your cast. For this one, we're going to choose Eventcaster, and this is going to let me create an event that I can share with people. So Eventcaster, and I'm going to create an event. So Nounish Prof and I host weekly office hours, open office hours for the Farcaster 101 series. People can come into our webinar and you can ask us questions, and we will give you one-on-one advice. So let's create our first one, Farcaster 101 office hours. We're going to do it on Wednesday. It's going to be 4 p.m.
Correct. Make sure it's ET. I have made that mistake often.
Our link to join is our StreamYard link. And
everything looks pretty good.
we're going to
You can
put it in
change the
GM
image.
Farcaster 101. And yep, and we can play around with the appearance, and we can change different styles for it. We like nouns. And that's it. To get started, I'm going to hit save. If you've noticed, I haven't typed anything or casted anything, and it creates a frame for me. So I can cast this right now, and that will go out to my followers.
Fantastic. So there you go. It's like magic. And there's a few other composer actions that are available as well. And Adrian, if you can pull up another one, just open up a new cast and just show maybe Bounty Caster, just so that we can demonstrate and give a look to one more of these composer actions. Fantastic.
There we go. So these are different types of awards that you can pay out your bounty in. So let's make a real bounty. We wanted
on the fly. Bounties on the fly. What do you want to do today?
Deadline optional in 2 weeks.
How about feedback for our Farcaster 101 series? Maybe give a little like best feedback award. Maybe it's like, I don't know, $1 per feedback post that's substantive, or maybe $5, up to you.
Okay. $1 USD for
you can tell we did not rehearse this part. Coming up with this on the fly, but I love it.
How about $5 USDC for giving us feedback on a recent GM Farcaster episode?
Perfect.
With specific critiques on what we can improve on.
Tell us what's good, too. You don't
no, let's just critique.
You don't have to add that. That's fine. I love it. So do we want to limit this to like 10 or something?
Yeah, let's
10
say
best or something like that.
How about limit to
one per person.
5 entries.
Sure. All right.
Something like that.
You can also use the Bounty Bot. You can sort of call to Bounty Bot and just tag them in a cast, and they will create the bounty for you as well. So another little magic piece of Farcaster, which I find very fun.
Yeah, and actually in this example, this didn't actually create a frame. So this is a Bounty Bot. It's a composer action, but it just helps you create your cast.
Right. Correct. So a little different.
But you can get the idea that there are many ways to use these Lego pieces to create rich content within Farcaster.
Exactly. So composer actions being one of them. All right. So let's head back over here. And so that was composer actions. We also have mini apps. So we can launch mini apps as well from frames, and there's a couple ways to do this. And one example of this is Paragraph. So I'm going to sort of demonstrate how you do that. Within Paragraph.xyz, you can use this blogging and newsletter site to write up a blog post, and then just take the link to the post, and you'll see it's pretty dynamic platform. We added in all of our videos. You can watch them right within that site. For this particular week, we do a weekly roundup of all the things. You can subscribe right here and collect. So everything's on that site. And then we're going to take the link, drop it in, just copy it, paste it into a cast, and it's going to look like this. So I can add a little bit to my cast to kind of introduce what it is I'm sharing, and then you can click on read, and it's going to open up the reading experience for you, which will look very similar to the site, but stay within the frame of Warpcast. So you can go ahead and read that, experience everything dynamically right there. same as you would on the site. And as you scroll down, you'll see again all the information that we just saw on the site as well. Okay, so that's another very simple way to create a frame that you might be doing anyway. So if you have a brand and you're doing some kind of newsletter or blog posting on Paragraph anyway, this is a really nice feature to be able to drop it in and make it very accessible to those who are reading it on Warpcast. All right. And we also have some more fun mini apps. So that's kind of our informational mini app. And then we have the fun game mini apps. So right now, two that have been developed by Matthew Fox is Farcaster, similar to Flappy Bird, and also a trivia game, which actually goes live at certain times. And you get to play live with a video feed with a host. And it is a lot of fun, similar to HQ Trivia. So for Farcaster, you can actually drop the link to Farcaster.xyz and it will create a frame for you to play. So you can do that, or if you're on mobile and you go to the Explore tab on mobile, you will see it right there and you can just launch it on your phone. But if you're on desktop or on web, you can go to the website and then just drop it in a frame to play within Warpcast. So Adrian had already done this earlier. If I click play now, it's going to launch the game. You'll see it's now logged me in. I didn't have to log in. I'm right there because I was already logged into Warpcast. So this is part of the social graph that we've talked about before. This is the leaderboard. You can see the leaderboard on here, and you're going to be able to see the Farcaster usernames. So you could go and sort of have a little bit of a rivalry with somebody, maybe challenge them, something like that. You can see all of that. And then you'll see I am horrible at this game. You can also share it, and it will create a frame where you're sharing the game itself, and then you can actually play the game. So here we go. This is going to be horrible. I'm going to warn you right now. I am awful. See, there we go. At least it was quick. You can share your score, and it will create a frame for you to share your score should you actually be proud of your score. I just scored 0 points. We will not share that cast. But you get the idea. And the reason we're sharing this with you is not just because it's something fun you can do on Warpcast, but it may give you some ideas of other games or experiences that you want to create for your brand or other ideas that you may have. So that is Farcaster. Okay, and moving on, if you want to create something a little more customized, not just grabbing a link and dropping it in or using a composer action that's already been created for you, which are sort of the simple experiences, you can create a no-code frame using Naynar's Frame Studio. And super easy to do, even for those who are not too technically inclined. So in other words, if I can create it, you can. And this is what was used for the State of Farcaster frame by Snickerdoodle. So we showed this in the last module, but I'm just going to review it again to give you an idea of sort of what this looked like in case you don't remember. This was a simple way of sharing some of the data from their State of Farcaster 2024 report. And as you scroll through, you see a lot of the really interesting statistics like user growth, cast activity, cast frequency, all of these really interesting stats. The popular chains that are in use on Farcaster and Base have been growing together, I would say. And Base has been very supportive of the builders within the Farcaster ecosystem. So you see a lot of activity on Base, but other chains as well. And you can see the tokens that are held by unique holders, lots of different cryptocurrency there, demographics, and other information there. And then, as we showed before, you can download the report. It will link you out to their website or share it, which will create a new cast for you to share the report with your followers. So this is the type of thing that you could create yourselves using the Nanar Frame Studio. And the way I know that it came from the Nanar Frame Studio is this link down below. So below the frame, you will see sort of the source of that frame. And in this case, it's frames.nanar.com. And we're going to take a look at the Nanar Frame Studio. There is a fee to use this. So it is fairly low. You can get started for $4 a month if this is something you want to dive into. And like I said, you don't need a huge amount of technical background to be able to do this. And it will show it has a lot of different options here. There's also a cast action, a composer action, to create a very basic photo frame. So that's already built in, and that is free on Warpcast. But this gives you a lot more options, turning any web page into a frame, slideshows. Again, that's already built into the composer actions. Frameception, so that means a frame within a frame. Remixing frames, so if there are frames that are open source, you can take what somebody's already done and remix it for your purposes, so you're not starting from scratch. Built-in image compression, mint with warps, analytics, and you never have to touch a line of code. So here's a few examples of some other frames that people have built, as well as the one we just showed you. And you can learn more here, as well as lots of documentation and assistance here. Also, the team is very helpful. So if you are interested in diving in more, they are very accessible and able to help. And if you see up this top right here, where it says /NFS, that's going to bring you to, it should bring you to, I believe, the channel NFS, which is Nanar Frame Studio on Warpcast. And lastly, let me also show you, if you really want to dive in, if you really want to develop something from scratch, you have a unique idea that doesn't fit into Nanar Frame Studio or one of these other options, this is where you want to start. You want to go to the Farcaster docs, so that's docs.farcaster.xyz developers/frames. And this is really going to walk you through all of the technical aspects of frames and help you get started. So this is if you have a much bigger idea in mind, this is where you want to go. It will walk you through how to do this, how to test it, how to deploy it, and all the different specifications regarding frames. Anything you want to add here in terms of frames, in terms of the technical side, Adrian?
I think the only thing I'll add is just a heads up on who Nanar is, or how Nanar fits into the Farcaster ecosystem. Nanar is a separate company, and they're a Farcaster infrastructure focused company. So where within Farcaster, any developer has access to the full social graph, all of the hubs, all of the data. So if you're a developer, you don't need to ask permission. You can get right into and get all of the kind of the back end data of Farcaster. However, Nanar is a company that provides all sorts of infrastructure that if you want a little bit of a head start. So if you there's APIs and a lot of dev tooling. So Nanar does a lot of dev tooling for Farcaster. So if you're looking to build on top of Farcaster, definitely check them out. They will help you kind of speed run a lot of what you're doing. And so just wanted to point that out on who they are. But I think we
covered it. Yeah.
Covered it.
So I think that is it for frames, for sort of the background, which we did in Module 3, and creating frames in Module 4. And next, we'll be diving into Farcaster culture. and all that entails. And that'll be a lot of fun. So that'll be for modules 5 and 6. We'll be diving in more into that. And I'm sure you'll be seeing lots of frames in relation to that once again. So the reason we had frames sort of as our next, modules 3 and 4, right after we sort of did our introduction and got you started onto Farcaster, was because it plays such a large role in the culture, in everything else we do on Farcaster now. You're going to see frames popping up all over the place, and we wanted to make sure that you were familiar and understood what was going on there. And if you are a brand or even just a builder of some sort who wants to share things in a frame, we wanted to make sure you had the tools and understood everything that was available to you. And I think that's it, Adrienne. Anything that I missed that you wanted to cover before we wrap module 4?
We covered it all. Just a reminder, pop into our weekly office hours. If you're watching these videos and jumping into Farcaster, make sure you come on in to our office hours so we can answer any questions you have, or tag us on Warpcast and we'll answer questions as well.
Great. And we will see you for the next one on module 5. And for now, bye-bye.